This is Fred Beck from Fred Talks Fighting, brought to you by Undisputed, available on Xbox and PlayStation. I'm down at London Street Fighters today in London, joined by Alexis Demetrius, coach of KSI. JJ put out a YouTube video yesterday, almost hinting to retirement. Is KSI retired?
Well, it's a kind of temperamental sort of position that we're in right now. We're in a place where we've done fight camps, we've trained really, really hard, had great sparring partners, flown them around, flown guys across the world, incurred loads of costs, just to get, injuries, to get sicknesses, and it's just disheartening for people, disheartening for coaches, disheartening for athletes, disheartening for, for JJ. It's not a good place to be.
Do you see him boxing again?
I think we've got to deal with a few issues first, but I think, the idea is there are fights that excite him that he wants to do, and they've got to be at that level that excite him. When you wake up every morning, you're busting your gut, and you think, I've got to fight this guy, and I'm not really up for it, or I can't wait. There's a big difference, and I think he's in a position where he gets to decide what he wants to do. There's still some huge fights available that we want, that we're going for, but at the same time, you've got to remember it's never a coach or a manager or anybody's job to convince anybody to fight. That person's got to want to do it. They've got to love to do it, and they've got to be excited and motivated to do it rather than be pushed into something. So I'm a big fan, and also JJ's a friend of mine. So for me it's us sitting down together and coming up with the right solution, not pushing a narrative that isn't needed if it's not wanted.
Okay. So he'll still be in the gym training, but just not in fight camp.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we train every day. Yeah.
Is that not a little bit demotivating, not having something to aim for though when you're training?
No, we've got other things to aim for. We'll have other things to aim for. There's lots of fitness goals and comps that we do and stuff that we aim for. We have lots of different athletes in here. But, obviously we're a fight gym, and that's what we're very, very good at and what we're famous for. I think you're in a position now where you're like, if I'm going to fight, I want to be fully healthy. I want to get rid of all my injuries, and I want to do this properly, rather than I've got this, I've got that, I'll just roll on it. It's not him, it's only that guy, he's not that good, I'll take him out and move on. It's not that kind of level. He's at a place where he can do what he wants with who he wants, when he wants. And I think that's a great place to be. Whereas with other fighters, you're fighting for mandatories, you're fighting for interims, you're fighting for rankings. In this scene, KSI is the top of the food chain. So he doesn't have to do any of that, and he's always going to be relevant with what he does online, with his music, and with his fighting. He's always going to be relevant. People are always going to want to pay to see it. It's just him enjoying what he's doing, him being motivated in what he's doing, and him, enjoying the process of what he's doing. I think those are the things that really matter.
Is KSI not enjoying boxing anymore?
No, of course he's enjoying it. The issue is, when you wake up in the morning, and you've got injuries and they're bad, and you're like, I don't need to be doing this shit, I could be doing other things. These things are across your mind. So once those injuries go out the way, or you're ill and you're sick and you're like, I still got to go and do that work. I've still got, I've got a fight coming up in a month, and I'm bedbound for the last 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. What am I going to do? Oh shit, I've got 2 weeks left. I'm still feeling, I can't get rid of this cough. And, these things demotivate you and they get you annoyed because you're like, I want to do this when I'm feeling great. I'm not in a position where I have to do any of this. I'm doing it because I want to do it. It's a very different position to being a normal fighter. Normal fighters they'll be injured and they'll be like, okay, no one's going to pay my bills. I've got to do this fight. And they fight injured. Most of the guys you'll see, most of the UFC guys, most of the guys high-level boxing, I know on the weekend with Joe Joyce and Jamie TKV and David Adley and Hergovic, these guys weren't fresh. They were injured. Loads of them had injuries. They carried injuries into those fights. But it's their paycheck. They have to do it. Whereas KSI, he's somebody that doesn't have to do it. He wants to do it. And he wants to prove a point. And it would be great that he could do it when he's fully healthy. And I agree with that. I'm a huge fan of making sure that the guys that don't have to fight for money fight because they love it and fight because they want to do it. So he's in a privileged position and we're in a privileged position that we can do that. Whereas the other fighters we have, lots of them, they fight with one arm, they'll fight with one leg. They have to.
So when the Misfits event, KSI and Dennis got called off and JJ put the video out, he said he'd been sick for 2 to 3 weeks. Did you guys think about stopping training for 1 week and letting him recover before going back into training?
Yeah, of course we did that. But he was sick for longer than that. He's had, he's been diagnosed with some illnesses, and there's ENTs, all ear, nose, and throat. It's sinusitis. It's like stuff that takes 4 weeks of antibiotics to get rid of. It's like, and you can't, cutting weight, taking punches, doing your cardio while you can't breathe through your nose is not the place to be. You know, I mean, you look at someone like Daniel Dubois, he cancelled the fight 2 days before the fight because he had, a cold. And that's top end. He had to do that because he didn't want to, sacrificing a lot of money. Well, JJ's fighting for way more money and way more prestige than that. So for a guy to have a significant illness where he's been on 2 sets of antibiotics, you can't not take that seriously. So we had to listen to doctors and we had to pull back off of training. And then you pull back off training and you lose timing and you lose that sensitivity of sparring, and then you'll question your cardio, and we're like, well, you're in great shape to beat this kid up. It'll be no problem for you to do. It's like, I know. But and the doctor gives him another course of antibiotics. You're like, well, you can't train because you're on antibiotics now. It ended up snowballing into something that's just, it's not worth doing for him, because we don't want compromise his health over something that just genuinely isn't worth it, without being arrogant or being like rude to Dennis or anyone. It's a fun fight to have, but at the same time, it's history. Don't get me wrong. And JJ wanted to punch him in the face, but 2 sets of antibiotics later, it's probably not the right decision to make. You wouldn't make it with a normal fighter. So why would you make it with a high profile guy? Obviously, if you had to do it with a fighter, you would have to do it. But if you had a choice, you wouldn't.
Okay, so then we fast forward a week later, and then footage comes out on Derek Chisora's story of KSI and Usher Concert on the same day as the fight was meant to be taking place. Is KSI kind of fully recovered now then?
No, but it's quite a strange one for people to jump on that, because like, I've got a cold, or let's say I've hurt my hand and it's really hurt. Doesn't mean I can't go to a concert. Like, I'm not fighting anymore. I'm recreational now. I can't train and put my heart rate in max zones and do my VO2 max and kill myself in sparring because I can't fight. But it doesn't mean I can't enjoy my life or go out. I think because he's a high profile kid, there's a lot of people talk a lot of shit online about, well, why is he there and what's he doing that? Well, I know he's been on antibiotics and he's ill and he can't fight. Doesn't mean he can't live his life. It's a very different scenario. I think people read a bit too much into it. You know what I mean? I think he's a young man that needs to let off his steam, and if he wants to go out to a concert and have some fun, I don't think there's an issue with that. He's been ill for a month off with 2 sets of antibiotics, and I think a lot of pressure for him to make this work, and it didn't work out.
KSI and Chavez were rumoured heavily on Twitter, I think by one of the Mexican ESPN reporters about a week ago. Is that a fight that's been talked about in camp? KSI versus Chavez Jr.?
Yeah, definitely. A super fun fight. You've got a guy who's like 56-12, won a world title, went 12 rounds with Canelo, still active, on a win streak, dangerous fighter, and he's like, he'll come to 185 pounds, got wins over UFC fighters recently, and obviously outrageous boxing record. I think super stylistic, fun fight. Definitely, yeah.
Is that a fight you'd want next?
Yeah, I like these fights. I think, you've always got to understand, weight divisions and what they're like. But I think 185 for that fight would be fantastic, because Chavez has fought up at 200 for his last fight, and we beat Uriah Hall. Imagine that fight, Cinco de Mayo, like May 5th. Obviously, we can't do it now, but I'm saying imagine that fight, huge fight.
September.
Yeah, I think these fights for us are perfect.
You do September, Mexican Independence Day?
Yeah.
Or was that May?
May is Cinco de Mayo, Day of the Dead. I think you're right. September is Independence Day. Yeah, but we'd be happy. We'd love that fight. I think stylistic is a great fight, and also because the fight that everyone wants, that we want, is a Jake Paul fight, and obviously he doesn't necessarily want it at the moment, and that's a great idea for people to see JJ fight somebody who's orthodox, who's 200 plus pounds right now, who's got 56 wins and had won a world title. It's quite a nice look for JJ, I think.
No, certainly. But would you go into that fight now, or would you want to have like a warm-up like you were going to have with Wayne Bridge or Dylan Dennis before that? Would you be happy to take the Chavez fight next?
Yeah, I'm not about warm-up fights, personally. I don't think we need warm-up fights. I think what we do is you get a fight camp and you go straight into a fight. As far as I'm concerned, the sparring that we have and the pressure we put on our athletes and on KSI, he's a game day kid. He performs on game day. He's like, when he comes out to fight, he comes out to fight. So I'm not worried about him performing. That's what he does. He's very, very good at that. I think what we need to do is lock in a fight camp, get locked in, and just the hard thing about KSI, I think the biggest problem that you have with JJ is his calendar. People don't understand how busy he is. So when you're like, oh, why is he ill? Or why was he playing 2 football matches before his fight? Why was he on Britain's Got Talent? Why was it? Because the kid has to do stuff for a living. Like, this is how he makes his money. It's how he's famous and what he does. You'd never get a fighter to do a second job. No fighters doing paper rounds and working nightclub doors. And you've got a fighter that's fighting for a world title. Generally speaking, they're at a level now where they're accomplished and they've got to put all their time into fight camps. So I think that a lot of people want a piece of JJ. And we absolutely want a piece of JJ because we know that if we keep him healthy, that will directly correspond to everything else. So once his health, if he's in good shape and he's in great fight camp, he's sparring well, then everyone's going to get their piece of him because he's going to be winning and doing great. But if it goes the other way around, he gets sick like he did because he's doing too much, in my opinion, then nobody gets a piece of it, you know? And when I mean a piece of it is, it's not a monetary thing, it's a time thing. If JJ puts his time into something, he'll be great at it because that's the type of kid that he is. If anyone puts their time and effort and passion into something, they're great. So if he puts it into boxing, he's going to be great. He puts it into Britain's Got Talent, he's great. He puts it into singing, he's great. He puts it into his YouTube, it's great. So I think that we need to divide the time effectively to make it worthwhile for him.
The Sidemen have often claimed that they don't particularly want KSI boxing unless it's the big fights. The Sidemen, obviously, his friend group, the people who are around him the whole time. Do you think that kind of affect JJ if they don't want him to box certain fights and he's going to take those certain fights?
Yeah, I think your friends will always affect you. I think the issue is that none of them ever box and none of them ever do anything athletic or competitively to a high level to understand the excitement, the thrill, the passion of what's involved in it. So it's easy for them to say something detrimental or derogatory or in a lot of way patronizing. This guy's not that good and you'll kill that guy and you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that. I think it's a little bit silly. I think ultimately they should be supporting him into something that he likes to do and that loves to do. He obviously loves doing it and he's obviously really good at it. You don't get to go around with undefeated boxers, pro boxers and fill out stadiums and, you know, people around the world, you know, wanting you to fight. He's obviously good at it. He's obviously got something to it. So I think your friends should encourage you. And it's not about honesty because honesty always comes into it, but encouragement is really important. It's empathy. It's putting yourself in that person's shoes and saying, oh, wow, they must love to box. I might support them. Rather than saying, oh, this is trash, I don't want to do that. It sounds like maybe there's, you know, without saying an ulterior motive, I just think obviously he does more Sidemen videos when he's not boxing and he does more boxing when he's doing Sidemen videos, he's not boxing as much. Like, vice versa, or he's not doing music videos, or he's not doing, you know, he's doing other things. So I think everyone's got their own agenda, but I think our agenda most importantly is if JJ's going to box, I want him to be safe. I want him to make sure he's at the level where he can compete with the guys that he's fighting at. So we require a certain amount of time. That's just bottom line. For JJ to box Chavez Jr., for JJ to box, Tommy Furies or the Nate Diaz's or the Conor McGregor's or these guys, he's got to be in camp. He's got to be a fighter, you know? And that means we need 8 to 10 weeks without any of the other stuff. And there's nothing rude or disrespectful about that. That's just how it should be, and his friends should support him in that fact that that's something that he wants to passionately do. I think all of those other guys do other things as well, right? The Sidemen.
A few, I think, like Vic Stars is DJing.
Okay, so you know, what's JJ like with that?
I'm not sure. I'll have to ask him. It's a good question.
I would have thought JJ was like, he's amazing, and I'm going to go support him and turn up to his gigs and be supportive, right? Mm-hmm. Well, that's what everyone should do. I understand it affects people's businesses, but ultimately, there's an element where I think boxing and fighting is so difficult. You put your arse on the line. Like, you know, people don't realize, oh, you're just punching. If you make one misslip, you get your face broken.
Not very nice.
Yeah, it's a hard life to have. And then on top of it, your mates will be like, it's shit, it's rubbish. Now only fight the big fights. You're like, you shouldn't diminish somebody else's work rate. I'm not saying they are, and they're all lovely guys. So I've got nothing bad to say about any of them. From how your question, the way you asked me the question, when you're saying that they don't want him to box, I think that I don't want him to box if he doesn't want to box. But if he wants to box, as a friend of mine, forget about coach. As a friend, I'm going to support that. And as a coach, I'm going to do my best job to make it happen. I think that there's a line that people tend not to, you can't be on one side of it and then the other side of it. I think you've got to be supportive and empathetic and professional. And then on top of it, you know, the truth is the truth. If JJ wants to do it, if he's not good enough, we'll find out in sparring, right? If he comes in here and he loses his sparring and he's not doing well, I'll be the first person to say, you can't win that fight, we're not taking it. You can't fight. But that hasn't been the case. So I think you've got to be supportive in these situations. And I think true friends, I think all those guys are his friends and they're all good guys. And like I said, I haven't had many interactions with them. And the ones I have, they've all been positive. I think they should support him in what he's doing and understand it's something that he wants to do.
Okay. Let me just change the camera battery real quick because it's about to die. 1 second. That's what happens when you don't have a cameraman, one-man band. Apart from that, though, else at Shoe Fighters, Idris Virgo's fight was cancelled. Do you reckon it'll be rescheduled pretty soon? We'll see him on the May card?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been speaking to the guys, and it's definitely being rescheduled, and that's a super fun fight. Fight that all the fans really want. I think Ty Mitchell's got a lot of hype about him, and Idris is like the pro that shouldn't be in the scene, right? So I think it's a good fight. Ty spars Tyson Fury, and undefeated white collar guy with like 30 knockouts. Box rec isn't so good, mind you, but his fighting is good. You know, his box rec I think is 3-2 if I'm not mistaken, but his white collar stuff I think is 13-0 with 12 knockouts I think, which is good. You know, great record. So that should be and you can tell he's a slick boxer. So that'll be a really fun fight.
No, certainly. I know it's a shame it got cancelled, but it'll be rescheduled for the future. Any other fighters coming down to train at Shoe Fighters in the near future? Anything you can give me?
Well, we've just got Derek has been given the number 1 slot for the IBF against Daniel Dubois. So we're looking to try and sign that fight summertime, which is crazy if we can get hold of it. Obviously, dependent. We've got guys in UFCs. I've got a guy sparring this week against Eubank and a couple of other fighters now. So, you know, it was just loads and loads of fight camps at the moment. And have Norbert Noveni Jr. fighting this Saturday in Hungary in a huge show, an MMA fight. We've got loads of fights coming up.
And then Michael Venom Page?
Michael Venom Page, we have put in a wish list to the UFC of the guys that we want to fight, you know, in top 5 guys in the world. We're trying to get him on that title run at welterweight. Obviously, if there's a fun fight at light heavyweight or middleweight, we'll take it. You know, strikers are option, the fight that we want. But we'll take anyone they give us. So we're in the pocket now, waiting for a fight to be given to us.
Adin Ross has got a show this weekend, or this week coming. It's in Miami. It's happening on the Friday, and they've got the UFC on the Saturday. Do you like what Adin's doing? Almost trying to compete with Misfits here?
Yeah, I think the more shows you have, the better, in my opinion, especially in the influencer scene. It gives people like stepping stones. Obviously, Misfits is, it's another level. They're doing stadiums, like, they're doing like 20,000 seats. So obviously it's a different level, but I think competition is fantastic. And I think also it'll be another place for some of the influencers who haven't got fights on Misfits to start fighting and get some experience and then move over. And some of the guys potentially have lost on Misfits or haven't got fights to go over and get some in-between fights in. I think it's a good partnership. I definitely think they should be throwing fighters between each other, for sure. I think it's, the more these kids it's really difficult when you're an influencer and you've got, let's say, 500,000 followers and you've got a blue tick and you're like, how can I monetize this? Like, how can I actually make some money? Like, everyone might know who you are, but how can you turn those people who know you are into money? And I think that fighting is an easy option. Someone pays you X amount of money to fight. Another guy who's got a blue tick, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what people don't get. It's difficult to monetize being famous when you're not famous for anything in particular.
Right.
So, obviously you've got like OnlyFans girls and blah. These things, they make a lot of money doing what they do, and then you've got guys like, selling personal training programs online, and they make money with what they do. And then you've got guys. It's just difficult sometimes when you're famous for being famous. Let's say like Idris is an example, right? Idris comes off Love Island. He's got to monetize that from doing TV shows but boxing pays good money when you're good at it. So, and if he can fight another boxer or he can fight another influencer, he's monetizing his fame, which I think people don't really know how to do at the moment. So fighting's a good way.
No, certainly. Everyone likes it as well. Whenever I always said this, I know I said this analogy a lot of times, but when you see 2 people having a fight on the street, you're going to watch it. If they're 2 famous people, you're going to watch it even more, So it makes complete sense. But yeah, Alexis, as always, thank you very much. As always, thanks for your time, mate.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Fred.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Very nice.